Growing up in a Mexican-American household was more about what we ate than it was about the music we listened to or the language we spoke or anything like that. We always had Tex-Mex food on our table. That has played a huge significance in kind of my upbringing and restaurant that I have now and the experience that I want people to have here. I want them to feel like they're at my table whenever I was a little kid.
I'm on a journey to become the best cook I can be. On this journey, I've traveled across North America and learned from everyone from undiscovered barbecue heroes to the hottest Texas barbecue teams out there. Over and over, I'm seeing that the secret to the best barbecue is rarely just the food. In each case, there's something more. Today, I get to learn from the man building the fastest growing barbecue empire in Texas. And he's doing it using an approach that most restaurateurs would call crazy. His priorities, frankly his whole approach, breaks with tradition in a way I've never seen before. And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it.
The most important thing is to focus on your employees first and try and treat your staff like family. Your employees are your number one customer. At least for us they are. And I'll tell them this, you know, they're our family. We treat them like family as best as we can. Our customers come second. And we want to take care of our employees because we know our employees will take care of our customers and make them want to come back. And the food is tertiary. The food is the last thing on my mind, although it is super important. We want to have great food. We're in the business of people.
The family aspect of working here and trying to help others is kind of what Brandon puts out there.
My brother and his wife have always believed in the people around them.
The way that I look at it is if they were not there, we would have no business. And so if our team isn't happy, you know, someone on our team isn't happy, we try and figure out the why.
They are very interactive with the team. They know their names, they know their families.
Brandon is one of the best bosses I've ever had, especially Miss Anna.
He treats his team so well. Seeing how he treats his employees, that's an inspiration to me as well. He has a servant's heart. I don't know if it's instilled in him, but it's just how he was.
When Brandon and Hannah and I were talking, and Brandon said that their most important priority is the people on their team. And so to hear founders say that, to be completely aligned with that vision, that's when I knew I was talking to the right people and I wanted to be on this team.
Brandon's done a lot of things for employees that normal owners wouldn't do or they wouldn't even think about. So it's nice to have somebody that's an owner that you can go to and say, hey, this person's going through a really hard time right now. Is there any way we can help them out? Like an employee's in the hospital, they have to get a surgery. So that's kind of cool.
He helps people at the restaurant tremendously that most people don't even know about. I've seen him get transportation for employees that don't have reliable transportation. I've seen him just give and give and give and really not need or want the credit for it at all.
At the time, I was the only one in my family working 2 jobs. And so I would be coming in and I'd be very stressful. Me and Mr. Brandon were talking and everything like that. And he has said, what can I do to help you? He was like, is it just a car? Is it a place? Like, what can we do to make your life a little bit better? And to be honest, I thought maybe he was just, you know, saying, hey, like, if you need help, then I can try to help you. But if I can't help, then, you know, I'll at least try to encourage you, right? So that's what I'm thinking. Because I did mention, like, because we had 2 cars in my family, so both of the cars were not working. On Thanksgiving Day, he surprised me with a car. And I really wasn't actually expecting him to get me a car. At other jobs, I never felt this way about my coworkers. And I don't know, I just really, really love it here.
Right, so you know I'm excited about this.
I know.
This is the origin story. This
Yes.
is how I first learned about you, was at the Windy City Smokeout when
Yep.
you gave me a cup of this
Yep.
and blew my mind.
Well, it's changed a little bit since then, so
Okay.
I hope it's even better now.
Better. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
think
a
you're gonna like it
that's a
even
tough
more.
fact to beat. So we'll see.
So we're gonna start with just a little bit of oil in here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna saute some garlic, onion, and cilantro.
Okay.
And we're just gonna let that get soft really quick.
Okay.
Now, the reason for this is I feel like traditional, we'll call it esquites, right? Elote is on the cob, esquites is cut off the cob.
Okay.
We call it
I know.
elote because we actually call it Mexican street corn in the restaurant.
Right.
That's kind of our way around that because people are like, well, what's esquite? No one can pronounce it,
Right. I've never heard of it.
Yeah. So we're gonna get just a little bit of butter going in here, and then I'm gonna add in, we get this corn every day out of our commissary kitchen, like 40 cases of corn, shuck it, cut it off the cob, vacuum seal it, and then deliver it to each of our locations fresh every single day.
Wow. So you're shucking.
This is fresh, cut right off the cob.
Wow.
Out of
Okay.
our commissary kitchen. And that's really important to us because we want to give people the freshest quality ingredients.
Right.
We just don't have the space for it here, you know,
That's
in our
a lot of
location.
work.
It is a lot. Get a little saute on that. And then I'm gonna hit this with a little bit of salt, a little bit of our pork rub. I like the pork rub because it's got chili powder, cumin, granulated garlic, all those Tex-Mex flavors that we're kind of looking for.
Nice.
I'm gonna add next a little bit of our crema.
Okay.
And this is just basically Mexican cream with a little bit of lime juice.
Okay.
Just toss all that together.
And if I'm going to try this at home, can I use sour cream, or do I need to figure out how to make crema?
You can use sour cream, but
Okay.
whenever you get your signed barbacoa book, it's got a recipe for Mexican crema.
Awesome. Now, when I get elote, I'm used to the crema just being on the outside. It's not
Not ours.
heated like this.
Yeah, we mix ours in.
That explains why it tastes so creamy.
We're gonna just spoon this in here. And then we call this brisket elote, right? So it's
Right.
got our chopped brisket right on top.
You chop from any particular area on the brisket, or is this
You know,
more trimmings?
it's
or?
kind of just a mixture of from all over. We're gonna add some freshly grated queso fresco. And then I'm gonna hit it with chili powder, a little bit of Valentina. And then we finish with just a little bit of cilantro for garnish. And that's it. That's our brisket elote. It's hot.
It's a thing of beauty.
And the corn is different too. So, you know, we were using frozen corn previously because that's all we really knew, but this, I think it pops way more fresh off
This
the
is a
top.
whole nother level.
Yeah. There you go.
It's an age-old question. Does the business make the man, or does the man make the business? In Brandon's case, it's clear that the values that drive him were instilled at an early age and are part of who he is to the core. And those values, which he learned as a child, are a big part of why Hurtado BBQ has been able to grow so fast while still maintaining their unusual approach.
I grew up in a family where I was the first person to go to college and graduate college on both sides of my family. My dad worked for a municipality in Irving, and my mom worked for my grandpa. You know, just grew up in a family that we learned to appreciate everything that we had.
You know, my parents are the ones who really were the background of us having that instilled the values and our morals and everything that we have growing up. And, you know, there's always in your family where everybody goes to gather for all the celebrations and feasts and whatever's going on. It was my parents' house that everybody went to. So we got to see all the cousins and aunts and uncles and people that came from out of town. They all always gravitated to my parents' house, mainly because of my mom and my dad. And mainly my dad, because my dad loved to cook.
There was one of those, it was almost like a Santa Maria type grill, but he would cook like a whole hog and things, and just everybody gathered around and we just, you know, enjoyed the fellowship and the food. And so the boys grew up around that.
I don't make decisions now based on, you know, what's in it for me or how am I financially going to benefit from this. I care more about legacy now than anything. And I think coming from a very humble upbringing, I've learned to appreciate more than just money because I've never really had money. So I've been able to focus more on relationships and people and trying to bring people together. And I feel like that's what I'm really good at, is bringing people together.
Before they left the house, DTRT, do the right thing. And that was really something that we stressed to them.
trying
we
to be
still
good
do tell them.
Be good role models
Yes,
as well too. For
good
them, you know,
law-abiding citizens. Do the right thing. Put your faith in God always. God is first.
I think that's something that I always took from my mom and my dad, is that do the right thing. It always goes back to a common element of being, doing what you think is good. And my parents would always tell me, you can tell, you can feel it inside, whenever you have a decision to make and you know what the right thing is. You already know what it is, just based on your internal feelings in your gut. And that was something that they would tell us a lot to follow.
So my degree was in PR in college. I went to UT Arlington, worked some pretty crappy marketing jobs after graduating. I remember I worked for a guy who owned a restoration company, and he was paying me 30 grand a year at the time. And he was like, this is all you'll ever make. This is all you're worth. Specifically those words. And that was very motivating for me to get out of that situation. I was left with a decision to make. Am I gonna go work for someone else, or am I gonna work for myself? And I had a client reach out and he said, we only wanna work with you. I started Anchor, ANKR, 2015, and that was my first client. And I think within the first 30 days that I had started my agency, I signed like 4 or 5 clients in the first 30 days.
Wow.
Making more money than I'd ever made in my life. I had no idea what to do with it, but it was pretty awesome. And it was a testament that I could make it on my own. And I've worked for myself ever since.
With the Anchor agency off and running, it was a personal setback that put Brandon in a position to learn the craft of barbecue. A craft that nobody could have predicted would take him as far as it has.
I had gone through a divorce before Hannah and I got back together, and I moved in with my parents, and they had this old smoker in their backyard, and I started playing around on it in my spare time, and I was just cooking briskets and trying to learn barbecue. And it was more about food photography at the time. I was getting like really into food photography, and I had this camera that I was using to take pictures and staging all my photos. And then I started like really getting into barbecue and cooking more and more and more. And I joined this group on Facebook called the North Texas Barbecue Addicts. And I saw other people cooking a lot more. And I was just posting a lot of food photography photos in there. And then I just started doing more barbecue. And then when Hannah and I got together, I went to a local brewery in Arlington after work one day. And I was talking to the owner there about some of the food that I was cooking and showing him some photos. And he was like, you should come sell tacos here sometime. I think that it would do really well. And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, just try it. Just come set up underneath a tent and sell food. Like, people want to eat, and then it'll help us sell beer longer and keep them sober longer. And so we did. In 2018, went and set up underneath a tent and sold barbecue tacos. And that was how Hurtado BBQ was born. So after the first pop-up, we didn't have a sink big enough to fit all the dishes in there, so my wife was literally scrubbing dishes in our bathtub, and she was like, yeah, that was a horrible idea, we're never doing that again. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty tired. The next day I woke up and I was like, man, I feel like doing barbecue again. She was like, what? I thought that was like a one-time thing. And I was like, no, I'm serious, like that was a lot of fun, it was a lot of work, but packed that place. People really liked our food. So talked to the owners of the brewery. We ended up planning another one and another one. And then it was almost like a weekly thing where on the weekends we were going to different breweries. I started an LLC, had a logo made, and I knew a guy that owned a marketing agency, made a logo. And it just worked out really well. It's like this brand was just born out of a passion for barbecue and for people. We got to a point where we wanted to graduate from doing dishes in our bathtub to doing dishes inside of a non-air conditioned food trailer. And I got on Craigslist one day and was looking for used food trailers that we could remodel, and I found one, took it to a fabricator and had him start working on it. So we were only set up on Saturdays in the beginning, but I was making my own sausage and cooking all the briskets and cooking the pork butts and beef ribs and everything else that was on the menu. So I was literally living there for like 3 days at a time.
So was there a turning point? Was there a point where you realized the food business is going to be the future, not the agency?
Whenever we made the decision to open a brick and mortar, and we remodeled it here in Arlington, you know, we were like, I hope this works. This is kind of crazy, you know, that we're putting all this time and effort and money into this. I hope that it pans out. February 22nd, 2020, the opening day in Arlington, I borrowed smokers from friends to help cook enough food. We only had 2,000-gallon pits at the time, and I still have them in that pit room over there. I had a guy here that was taking over the night cook for me. He was a buddy that was helping out, and I was there cooking the whole day before, and I was beat, you know, got all the briskets and butts on. And I said, hey, look, I'll be back at like 5 in the morning. All you gotta do is just keep the fires going, and the briskets are already wrapped. All you gotta do is just keep them going. This is at like midnight. And I ordered pizza for everyone because everyone's working their butts off and wanted to feed them. It was like our family meal. I didn't realize that he had an allergy to tomato sauce. And he should have known that too, but apparently he had an allergic reaction. And I get back at 5 in the morning, all the pits are at like 100 degrees, and I was like, what the hell's going on? Apparently he had an allergic reaction. He took a bunch of Benadryl, and he was drinking Bud Light, you know, trying to stay awake, and passed out in his car and let all the fires die. And so we had to recover the fires, and thankfully they hadn't been too low for too long. We saved all the food and got all the morning proteins on, but we literally almost didn't have a successful opening day because of Mr. Benadryl. We had a line that started at 5 in the morning, and by 11 a.m. when we were open, it was 4.5 city blocks long. Wow. It was nuts. And so I knew at that point that this was gonna work. It was kind of affirmation that, you know, this is our future, and we're gonna be a barbecue family.
You know, we're talking a lot about Brandon. He's the face of the restaurant. But Brandon's wife, Hannah, plays an instrumental role here as well, one that makes all of this possible.
When you walk into the Hurtado's in Arlington, you feel Hannah and Brandon, and that's the magic. That's the secret sauce, right? So how do you create that in other locations? By growing and developing people that believe in the vision and what you're doing that can recreate that.
When we were running our pop-up events, she was running the register, talking to people, and she has a real passion for people too. And so I think secretly she liked it more than I did, but she wouldn't admit it. So she enjoyed doing the pop-ups, and she enjoys coming to the restaurant to this day and talking to customers and wiping tables off, cleaning tables. Hannah's the glue that holds our household and our family and our business together. She manages our caterings, which is a beast in itself because our catering business has literally doubled over the last year. The biggest responsibility I think that she has, besides babysitting me, is processing our payroll every week. And we have payroll for Arlington, Fort Worth, Mansfield, our bar, Haters, and collectively we have over 100 employees. So she has to go through, make sure tip share is allocated properly, make sure catering tips are allocated properly for every catering, every person who worked every catering. It's a lot. It's a big responsibility, and she does it while taking care of 3 kids.
We do our best to make sure, like, if we know that someone wants to leave or has put in their notice, sometimes the relationship, it's probably best that we part ways at that point, but most of the time we are wondering why. And sometimes it's, you know, one of the college kids have landed like their ideal job, and we get that.
So this is our Big Mike burger. This is a smash burger that we make from our brisket trimmings. We trim 6,000 pounds of brisket a week. That's how much we go through just here in Arlington at this one location. And we have all this trim, and we needed to find something to do with it. So this, you know, burger was the obvious choice for us. Right. And this burger in particular is special to me because my dad's best friend who he grew up with, his name is Mike. Okay. He's Big Mike. And he would come to the restaurant pretty often with my best friend who I grew up with, who's the same age as me, Little Mike. Coincidentally, Little Mike and I are now brothers-in-law. He married my wife's youngest sister.
How cool is that?
And younger sister. She's the middle sister. and I actually married them. I got ordained and married them last year.
Wow.
And they have a little boy together. His name is also Mike. He's the littlest Mike. Yeah. So this burger was named after his dad, who passed away with cancer a couple years ago.
I'm sorry.
He's a really special guy. He's one of those guys that, you know, they don't make people like him anymore.
No.
And I wanted to do something to pay homage to him and his legacy. And that's what this burger is about. So we smash our brisket trimmings down, a little bit of our beef rub. We've done different variations of a smoked burger in the past, but you know, this one is the one that I think customers kind of resonate with the most.
Right.
So we use a brioche roll.
Nice.
Got some really nice texture to it, really nice and fluffy.
No. And that's just butter in there?
Yeah, that's just clarified butter. So we're just gonna hit a little bit on both sides. And I try and really smash it down. Like I want that nice.
Super thin?
Yeah, I like it really thin, and I also like that nice crust on the side, you know, whenever you smash it down.
Absolutely.
That's kind of that sear that we're looking for. I'm gonna hit it with just a little bit more seasoning.
Okay.
And then immediately we're gonna follow it with American cheese. We're gonna get a little bit of butter on top, flip that.
Nice.
Flip that guy.
So is the ingredients in the brisket or the beef rub a secret?
No,
Okay.
it's actually in my cookbook. So
Okay.
I don't think anything's a secret in barbecue, at least not for me. So I want people to be able to share the love that I have for food.
Awesome.
Set this on top of here.
Okay.
So they get two patties, two really good sized patties. We're gonna start building by hitting this with a little bit of garlic aioli. We make that fresh every day here in the restaurant.
Great.
And then I like my veggies on bottom.
Right. Keep
some nice bib lettuce, some red onion, sliced tomato, and then chase it with these patties right here. And then I like to top the patties with our house-made garlic habanero pickles.
House-made garlic habanero pickles.
Yes, it's a labor of love. We make those from scratch 7 days a week. And that is the Big Mike burger right there.
Wow. That's
yeah,
amazing.
It's a pretty glorious burger.
Pretty glorious indeed.
Yeah.
You gonna take a bite?
No, you can though.
All right, here we go.
It's hot. It's hot.
Okay. Oh, dude. That might be the best burger I've ever had. It's just the brisket seasoning.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So neither you or Hannah had restaurant industry experience before. How did that manifest itself? Were there mistakes that you made that you had to recover from?
Oh yeah, we've made so many mistakes not having a restaurant background. It's one of those things that I learned that I would probably tell a young restaurateur that if it, you know, looks too good to be true, it might be. Do your research. For us, we were young and ambitious, and we had an opportunity to open a location in a little town called Little Elm.
The beginning of Little Elm was like a wildfire. In the beginning, it was a great place to operate because of the traffic through there with the lake. But once the lake season died down, business died down really hard.
It was great at first. You know, it's a lakeside community. People were there on the lake in the summertime. And then as soon as school started back, we just saw significant decrease in volume. People weren't going out to eat as much. In the midst of huge decline in sales in Little Elm, the holidays are huge for us in the barbecue world. And the day before Christmas Eve, I get a phone call that Little Elm is flooding.
They had put on an addition to that restaurant before we had moved in, and I guess they didn't insulate the ceilings. And so one of the main pipes up there had burst.
And water just flooding in the entire restaurant with customers in there. insulation and electrical wires are hanging all over our food.
There was so much damage to the building, plus all the product that was lost in storage. It was a lot, plus the several days of being closed due to having to do repairs and cleanup and just everything.
We never quite recovered after that. Repairs weren't made that were supposed to be made. It didn't work. You know, we were under a performance agreement where we had to have a certain number of employees, and you know, your labor's through the roof, and start going into debt with food vendors and stuff. And it's just, your other two locations are doing well, so you know it's not the company as a whole, and it's not those locations, it's not those municipalities, it's where you're at that's not working, and we couldn't operate like that. So I ended up closing the business, I think, like a month later.
He comes out of the room and he was telling us what happened. Hannah stayed back, but Brandon comes in, he's, Mom, Dad, I think I'm gonna have to shut down Little Elm. I said, I'm gonna tell you something, Brandon, and this I really mean, and I mean it now as much as I did that day, but I said, we're so proud of you, son, for everything you've accomplished. If you don't do one more thing in this lifetime, I said, we will always be proud of you and everything you've done, Brennan, because I don't think anybody in our family has accomplished what he has. And just to bring the Hurtado name to where I know my father-in-law would be so proud, looking down from heaven, I think maybe Robert might have been a little bit of inspiration and everything as well, but
Well, I think that's why Brandon named it Hurtado, because he wanted my dad to be proud of him. You know?
and seeing Brandon to where he is now, I'll get teary-eyed. From where he came from. He built this business with nothing. Nothing, just not even a few dollars in his pocket. I remember the day he called us and we had moved to the country because we commuted for 2 years and we're both crybabies. but whenever he called us at the ranch, we call it, and he said, Mom, Dad, I'm gonna buy a food truck. I said, son, please don't do that. I practically begged him not to because I didn't want to see him bite off more than he could chew. And with all of our life, we've both worked very hard for what we have. And this is all a blessing. It's a blessing from God.
I know for a fact it was a very hard decision for him to shut down and all his employees, or most of his employees, lose jobs. Brandon looks out for his employees a lot. We're like family, and to have to tell people you no longer have a job to support your family, he didn't like it at all. And I think that's why he stayed open as long as he did, trying to make it work.
A lot of people will not support you if you're not paying the bills. And when I say a lot of people, 99% of people. So me and my company, US Foods, I saw a guy that's passionate about his craft, super smart, super great marketing guy, and I'm like, this is a guy that's just in a rough spot right now. He is in a situation that sucks in this moment. How do we help him? So we talked about, hey, what's the plan? We're in a hole right now. How do we get out? And so there was a lot of trial and error on how do we collect some money, not all of it, a little bit here, a little bit there, prepay for this.
It was tough, but we changed our business model a little bit at our other two locations and went from being open until we're sold out to having set hours and being open until 9 o'clock, 7 days a week, which is not the traditional model for craft barbecue.
How big of a change was that, going from the we're gonna sell everything we have and then wrap up for the day to we gotta have enough to dip for dinner?
I mean, my employees thought we were crazy by doing that, and I told them, well, Hutchins and Terry Blacks do it every day, so there's no reason why we can't figure it out.
Night one was the easiest one because we all knew it was going to happen. Everybody was pumped up for it. We were excited. It was the 2 weeks that happened after that where now we started to see the effects of working 60 hours, 70 hours sometimes. It just depended.
And they did, and you know, we hired a bunch of people and made it work, and people came out and supported the heck out of us.
He survived it by doing what he does best, and that's putting God, letting him have control of it, and just working hard and coming back here and focusing on this store, focusing on Fort Worth, and just keep grinding. But I think he put all of it in God's hand and said, it'll be okay.
I thank God for bringing us out of that because, it was a learning experience and it's helped us make smarter decisions moving forward. Next, we're gonna make our famous Quesabirria tacos. This is our #1 seller in all of our restaurants. It's got slow smoked and braised beef brisket that we cook inside of our consommé, which is the beef broth, the dipping sauce that we use for this. We start with our chili oil, getting the tortilla nice and coated in that.
And a chili oil.
Chili oil, yep.
That explains the color.
That explains the color, yes. Good. And then I hit this with copious amounts of cheese. This is not just regular mozzarella. We do a 3-cheese blend of Menonita, Oaxaca, and queso fresco.
Okay.
So it's like really creamy.
Good.
And then I'll go ahead and add our braised beef. See how nice and juicy that is? Lots of flavor going on there.
Now, what is birria usually made with when it's not at a barbecue?
So usually it's made with goat. For all intents and purposes, we are in Texas and people love brisket, so we make ours with brisket.
Right. And birria is really about the consommé.
Right.
And the dipping experience.
Correct.
All right. And what do we just put on there?
Salsa verde.
Okay.
Just a little bit more chili oil on the outside. Get that nice red color. And I'm gonna get a plate and we'll be off to the races.
Okay, good.
All right, so I added a little bit of our queso fresco, some cilantro, and then this is our consommé. Try the consommé by itself though. It's not super hot.
Just take a sip.
Yep.
Oh, dude. That is so beefy.
Yeah.
Is there tallow in there?
Yeah, a little bit. So hold the plate really quick.
Yeah.
And I want to show you, this is what a good birria taco should do. That right there. That's what you want. That's
You
your
look
bite.
pretty proud of yourself.
That's your bite right there.
All right.
You're good to go on that.
All right, here we go. So much flavor. I'm going in again. So much flavor.
The crunch, the textures.
It's all there.
3 fist bumps. While we were in the midst of the whole recovery from Little Elm, the Texas Rangers had reached out to us about being part of a pilot program called Arlington Eats, where they were allowing local restaurateurs to sell food at certain games. So we spent that season selling food inside the ballpark like once every other month. And at the end of it, they were like, hey, you guys killed it, you did really well here. Would you want to be a partner of the Rangers permanently? And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So we signed a multi-year deal with them. They built us our own stand inside the ballpark. And we opened that 2023 and went on to be a part of a World Series championship season, which was the first in franchise history. It was a really special year for us, and we got to cater the World Series. We got to cater the All-Star Game, meet all kinds of baseball players from all over the United States, and it's just been a really incredible partnership.
So you've also got some other big names that are fans and forming partnerships, right?
Yeah, so I met Taylor Sheridan through a friend of mine who was his executive chef. I went to just go help with a cooking event at his ranch in Weatherford one day, and then I went out to the 4-6's ranch to help with some caterings, and now we run his kitchen at his ranch in Weatherford for all of his cutting shows, horse shows. He flew us out to Vegas a few weeks ago to do a huge horse cutting show called the Run for $1 Million, and I've got to feed the cast of Yellowstone, the Lioness. We've got to do a lot of caterings for Landman, for different TV shows that Taylor's producing, and all of our beef comes from the 4-6's ranch, so all of our beef is sourced locally, which I think is pretty awesome. It's some of the best beef in the United States, bar none. So We've been working on some really cool stuff together. So Taylor just endorsed my cookbook that is getting published in March of 2025.
What made you decide to write a cookbook?
I didn't decide to write a cookbook, I was forced to. This publishing company just hunted me down and was like, hey, we think you're the guy to do this. And I was like, I don't think that you know the right person. You just haven't met them yet. And they're like, no, you're the guy. We want you to write a cookbook on TexMex BBQ.
So 2018, you're doing pop-ups. 2019, you've got a food truck without air conditioning to wash your dishes in. 2020, you open up Arlington. It's 2024 now. We've got 6 restaurants, including the one that's getting ready to open in Dallas. How big does this get?
It's not about a number to me. It's about, you know, where can we make the most impact in different communities? Where can we feed people? Where can we donate back to schools that mean something to us?
One of the biggest things that Brandon and Hannah do every year, they've started buying several hundreds, if not thousands, of teachers' Amazon wish list and just giving back to the community.
We want to be able to do more for others, but I feel like being in Dallas County, being in Tarrant County, being in Denton County, like that's a good base for where we live and where our employees live. If you're looking to get into barbecue, it doesn't matter if you have the best food in the world. It doesn't matter if you have the best marketing or the fanciest restaurant. What matters is how you treat people and how people remember you.